Hello everyone, today we dive into one of the most consequential and morally corrosive political betrayals in all of ancient Chinese history. The moment when Li Si, the most powerful chancellor of the Qin Dynasty, the architect of China's first unified empire, abandoned his loyalty to the rightful heir, Crown Prince Fusu, and entered a murderous conspiracy with the ruthless court eunuch, Zhao Gao. This is not a story of simple greed or cowardice alone. It is a chilling dissection of power, fear, ideological conflict, and survival, in a system where one wrong choice could mean death, disgrace, and the annihilation of an entire family. To understand why Li Si betrayed Fusu, we must go back to the sweltering summer of 210 BC, to a remote imperial palace in Shaqiu, where the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, lay dead, his final secret unspoken, his empire hanging by a thread. By 210 BCE, Qin Shi Huang had ruled the unified Chinese empire for 11 years. He had conquered 6 warring states, standardized writing, currency weights and measures, built the Great Wall, and imposed a brutal but efficient legalist system that concentrated absolute power in the throne. At his side stood Li Si, a man who had risen from a poor village in Shanghai to become the empire's chief minister. Li Si was not just the bureaucrat. He was the ideological backbone of Qin's legalist order. He had championed the abolition of feudal fiefs, pushed for the burning of books and burying of scholars to eliminate dissent, and built a state ruled by strict laws, collective punishment, and unchallenged imperial authority. For nearly 40 years, Li Si's fate and the Qin Empire's fate were one and the same. He had everything: wealth, titles, influence, and the trust of the first emperor. But everything changed when the emperor collapsed suddenly during his 5th grand tour of the empire, far from the capital, Xiangyang. The first emperor's death was kept secret by Li Si himself. He feared that news of the emperor's passing in a foreign land would spark rebellion among the conquered states, and power struggles among the imperial princes. Only a tiny circle knew the truth: Li Si, Zhao Gao, the youngest prince, Hu Hai, and a handful of trusted eunuchs. The emperor had left a single sealed edict, addressed to his eldest son, Fusu: return to Xiangyang, take command of the army from Meng Tian, and preside over my funeral. This edict was not just a funeral order, it was a clear, unspoken designation of Fusu as the next emperor. Fusu was a man of virtue and moderation, deeply critical of his father's harsh policies. He had openly opposed the burning of books and the mass execution of scholars, arguing that mercy was needed to stabilize a newly unified empire. For his honesty, Qin Shi Huang had exiled Fusu to the northern frontier, where he served as a supervisor under General Meng Tian, the most respected military commander in Qin, who commanded hundreds of thousands of troops, guarding the border against nomadic invaders. Zhao Gao, the chief eunuch, in charge of the imperial seal and documents, saw the emperor's death as his chance to seize absolute power. He hated Meng Tian and his brother Meng Yi, who had once sentenced Zhao Gao to death for a crime before the first emperor pardoned him. He also knew that Fusu, once emperor, would reverse Qin's harsh legalist laws and surround himself with moral conservative advisors, not a scheming eunuch like himself. Zhao Gao first convinced the young weak-willed Hu Hai to usurp the throne, telling him that without seizing power, he would be reduced to a nobody, while Fusu ruled as emperor. But Zhao Gao knew he could not succeed alone. The conspiracy needed Li Si. Without the chancellor's public approval and institutional authority, any forged edict would be dismissed as a fake the moment the entourage returned to Xiangyang. Li Si was the linchpin of legitimacy. Without him, the coup was impossible. When Zhao Gao first approached Li Si with the plot to destroy Fusu and enthrone Hu Hai, Li Si reacted with righteous anger. He called Zhao Gao's words of a state traitor, and insisted that he could not betray the first emperor's final wish. Li Si had dedicated his life to Qin. He was not a man to casually overthrow the imperial succession. But Zhao Gao was a master manipulator, and he knew exactly where to strike Li Si's soul. He did not appeal to greed, he appealed to survival, to legacy, to the deepest fear that had driven Li Si his entire life. Zhao Gao posed 5 brutal questions to Li Si, questions that cut through all pretense of loyalty. Compare yourself to Meng Tian. Are you more talented? Do you have greater achievements? Are you wiser in strategy? Are you more beloved by the people? And do you have closer trust with Fusu? Li Si was forced to admit the truth. He was inferior to Meng Tian in every single one of those areas. Zhao Gao then delivered the fatal blow. He reminded Li Si of a brutal truth in Qin politics: no former chancellor who had been replaced by a new emperor had ever lived to enjoy a peaceful retirement. Shan Yang, the founder of Qin's legalist system, had been torn apart by chariots. Elvi Buwei, the former regent, had been forced to drink poison. If Fusu became emperor, Meng Tian would become chancellor, and Li Si would be stripped of his office, his titles, his wealth, and likely his life. Worse, his entire family would be exterminated. Zhao Gao did not stop at fear. He offered a devil's bargain. If Li Si joined the plot, Hu Hai would be grateful. Li Si would remain chancellor, his family would be safe, and his life's work, the legalist empire he had built, would survive. If he refused, he would lose everything, and his descendants would suffer a cruel, violent end. This was the moment that broke Li Si. His entire life had been guided by what later historians called his rat philosophy. He had once observed that rats in the toilet lived in fear and filth, while the rats in the granary lived in safety and plenty. He had sworn to be a granary rat, never to return to powerlessness and danger. Li Si was not just afraid of losing his position. He was terrified that Fusu's moderate Confucian-leaning rule would dismantle the legalist system he had spent decades constructing. Fusu's mercy, Li Si believed, would weaken the empire and invite chaos. He saw himself not just as a politician fighting for his job, but as the defender of Qin's entire political order. And then, there was the final unspoken threat. Zhao Gao already knew Li Si was aware of the emperor's death and the hidden edict. If Li Si refused to join, Zhao Gao could easily frame him as a traitor who concealed the emperor's death for his own gain. Li Si was trapped. There was no middle ground, no neutrality. He either became a conspirator, or he became a victim. After hours of agonized silence, Li Si wept and looked to the sky. He lamented that he lived in a chaotic age, that he could not die to repay the first emperor's kindness, and that he had nowhere to place his life's loyalty. With that broken surrender, Li Si agreed to the conspiracy. Together, Li Si and Zhao Gao forged a fake edict in the first emperor's name, accusing Fusu of unfilial piety and Meng Tian of treason, ordering both men to commit suicide. The edict was sent to the northern frontier. Fusu, loyal and honorable to a fault, believed the edict was genuine and killed himself immediately. Meng Tian refused to take his own life and was imprisoned, later forced to die by poison. With their rivals dead, Li Si and Zhao Gao escorted Hu Hai back to Xiangyang, where he was crowned Qin Shi the second emperor. For a brief moment, Li Si believed he had saved his power, his family, and his legalist empire. But the betrayal had sealed Qin's fate. Hu Hai was a weak, cruel puppet, entirely controlled by Zhao Gao. The new emperor launched a bloody purge of the imperial family and loyal ministers, killing dozens of princes and princesses, and destroying anyone who might challenge his rule. Taxes were raised to unbearable levels. Corvée labor became even more oppressive, and the people of Qin, already exhausted by decades of harsh rule, finally rebelled. Meanwhile, Zhao Gao turned on Li Si. He accused the chancellor of treason, tortured him into a false confession, and in 208 BC Li Si was publicly executed in Xianyang's marketplace, with the 5 punishments his body cut in 2 at the waist. His entire family, 3 generations deep, was exterminated. The man who had betrayed his prince to save his own life and legacy died a horrific death. His family wiped out, and the empire he loved collapsed entirely, just 3 years after his execution. Li Si's betrayal of Fusu was not a moment of sudden madness. It was the logical, tragic outcome of a life spent chasing power in a system, without mercy, without checks, without a peaceful way to step down. He was motivated by fear of Meng Tian, fear of Fusu's ideological opposition, fear of losing his status, and fear for his family's safety. He convinced himself that he was acting for the good of the empire, that only his continued rule could preserve Qin's order. In the end, his choice destroyed everything he had built. The empire fell, his family died, and his name was forever stained as one of history's most tragic traitors. This is the dark heart of power. Even the most brilliant, most accomplished statesman can be broken by fear, manipulated by cunning rivals, and led to commit unforgivable sins that destroy themselves and the world they sought to protect. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.